I just want to take this quick opportunity to bring regards from our Premier and from our Minister responsible for the subject matter. And we are discussing, they're both engaged in budgetary discussions and none of them could be here. I am here as a special envoy of Premier Weekly that helps to advance our climate change agenda. I think some of you may know my background, some of you may not. I am the former Deputy Premier of the Virgin Islands. I served 20 years in politics, and I was the person who engineered the Climate Change Trust Fund. I engineered the Climate Change Bill, the policy, and brought us to just about where we are at this point in time. That is important because I want to emphasize this point to you and put in context not only why I'm here, but why we are soliciting your help. The Premier of the Virgin Islands and myself sit on a different political divide. We belong to different political organizations. But on this particular issue, and when it comes to the national issues surrounding our environment, we are basically one and the same, because if you've been to the Virgin Islands, you know that our environment is basically our life. It is what we depend on, because if tourism is our breadbasket, 90% of the people who come to the British Virgin Islands come to enjoy our environment. Sailing is our #1 industry. And so, where we are at this point in time with our Climate Change Trust Fund and why it is necessary to advance the discussions out of this meeting is very important to us. I want you to appreciate a couple of historical facts so you can really understand and appreciate why our Climate Change Trust Fund is so critical. Our environment, if you go back to the 1950s, got a tremendous boost in the name Rockefeller. Rockefeller was the person who built the first hotel in the British Virgin Islands, but he was also the person, and that was David Rockefeller, who initiated our National Parks Trust. And our National Parks Trust has coexisted from way back in the 60s. And it's a statutory organization. It governs our national parks leading up to where we are right now and helps to manage our environment. If you fast forward to where we are in the British Virgin Islands, there is something called the Climate Change Initiative, which was held in Necker Island in the British Virgin Islands in 2013, which was spearheaded by us, the Ministry of Natural Resources and Sir Richard Branson, in association with CARICOM and other stakeholders. That was important to us because right around that time were the issues that were evolving with respect to climate change. Now, we live in a hurricane belt. Every year we go through this. It's not a figment of our imagination. Hurricanes are very real to us. And more recently, we have been put up with earthquakes. But that time there was important because it was around that same time when former Vice President Al Gore had his documentary that sort of brought on this whole idea of climate change. And although we weren't necessarily, au fait with climate change, what we knew is that our environment was beginning to be affected in ways that could have prolonged and non-sustainable effects for us. We had come out of a generation of young BVI landers who were militant about protecting the environment. We now have fisheries protection in legislation. We have beach protection legislation. We have in modern legislation for our National Parks Trust, all of which have been put together in a way to help sustain our environment, not only for us, but for generations to come. So somewhere after the Caribbean Challenge Initiative, we started and came on board with the issue of protecting our environment, that 30% of the nearshore environment, which we decided to put legislation in place to protect. We also protected sharks and rays and committed to being renewable by 2050, like everybody else, at least 50%. And so building up all of these various issues over the last 15 or so years, we have sought to protect our environment in a way that is sustainable. So we're not just talking about climate change as a as a technical issue. We're talking about climate change as it pertains to our very livelihood, because our environment is us. One former director of fisheries in our country used to say, wither the environment, wither the Virgin Islands. And so our environment is near and dear to our heart. We fast forward, we were able to put our legislation in place that is the legal structure for us to be able to establish the Climate Change Trust Fund. And I was the minister at the time that did all of that and put the Climate Change Trust Fund board in place. We chose the individuals. The trust fund legislation itself actually embodies a complete set of individuals from various aspects of the society to serve on that particular board to be able to advance it. We not only got beyond ourselves because of our deep-seated commitment to our environment and the establishment of our climate change legislation and then the trust fund, we decided to take the initiative to capitalize that fund ourselves, so that every visitor to the British Virgin Islands has to pay a $10 levy when you enter the country to help protect our environment, so that you not only can enjoy it, but the generations to come will be able to enjoy it. And last count, we have been able to raise something like $5.5 million just from the levy alone to be able to capitalize our fund. And so we are at a place now where we are seeking an advancement in finding funds to put in our fund to do all the things that are necessary for our environmental sustainability. I can't emphasize the point enough of why that is important, because renewable energy is clearly something that we need to be working on. But I want to take you back a step. When I was the minister, I remember it was before Brexit, at a meeting in Luxembourg. We were discussing amongst the overseas countries and territories at the time, which embodied French, Dutch, etc. And one of the points that came up, and this is way back in 2014, 2015, one of the points that came up, that small island developing states do not have the administrative infrastructure to be able to access the funding that is available on a global sense. That was an issue back then. It is an issue now. We have advanced little from then to now in terms of being able to access those funds. And so coming out of this particular discussions, what we are hoping is, by putting at the forefront our climate change trust fund, we are saying to you, we have done as much as we can do. We've gone as far as we can go in terms of being able to fund it, fund ourselves. We need help now to be able to move forward. We have established a structure that we think other countries can emulate to get us to this point. And if we are successful in the next step, then other countries in the Caribbean, small island developing states, overseas countries themselves can just pick up the ball from where we have come to be able to advance the whole agenda of being able to access those funds. So the Global Climate Fund, the Green Fund, all of those names mean little or nothing to us because we don't have the opportunity that is available vis-a-vis the human resource manpower to be able to access the funding. And that is one of the things that we are here so soliciting help in that we're telling you we've done our part. Others can follow our path, but we need now help to take us to the next level to be able to access those funds, because accessing those funds means investing in environmental sustainability in more ways than you and I can begin to imagine. 2 days ago in the VI, we had a conference called the BVI Ideas Festival. And one of the presenters were talking about the whole concept of the carbon bonds, that for nature swap, and the whole idea of monetizing the environment so that you can be able to utilize it for accessing the funds. Now those things mean a lot in terms of what they say, but here we are now stuck because we don't have the necessary human manpower resource to be able to access those funding. And so, as we stand here today, we are saying that we've done our part to advance as far as we can go. The whole question of debt for nature swap, carbon bonds. I mean, that presenter was talking, for instance, about the seabed, the seagrass, being valued at $6 trillion. Somebody needs to find a way to monetize the value of the seagrass in the British Virgin Islands so we can use that for climate financing. And all of those various issues are why we are here to help advance it. But we have a mechanism that can just literally take up that funding and move forward. We don't have to depend on government to be able to do that because we have a legal structure and people from all walks and forms of life who sit on that board to be able to access those funding. So I'm saying, as a special envoy to the Premier, that we have done our part. And our partners in CARICOM, our partners in the OECS, our partners on the international scene need now to lend a hand to be able to help us to do what is necessary to advance where we are at this point. So I commit our Climate Change Trust Fund to you in more ways than one, saying to you that we are not only committed in terms of talk, we've committed in terms of actions, and we need now your help in being able to advance from where we are. I thank you for your attention.